China and the United States and the West in general are strategic rivals in many ways. What complicates that is three plus decades of enmeshed supply chains, right? That have made their way in and out of China through the old process of globalization, and again, pretty much done and initiated by American and European and other foreign multinational companies when that model of globalization was still feasible.
From a supply chain perspective, do you find that China and the US will increasingly compete in 2023?
Going forward, there is a strategic rivalry between China, the U.S., and its close partners and allies, and that is going to redefine supply chains. So we will have to see strategic decoupling uh, on one level. On another level, there's going to be continued trade and investment with China in this gray area. And I say gray area because it is a very nebulous gray area that involves um, dual use technologies. Dell Computer has already announced that by 2024, it's not going to have any of its logic or memory chips or any of its chips made in China. So, we're hearing the same things about automotive supply chains. And so that clearly is a decoupling trend that's going to continue. That gray zone that I just mentioned is going to be a pretty active area with two-way trade and investment that's going to continue. But that's also going to be very tricky because there are human rights issues, there are potential issues in the South China Sea, and of course with Taiwan that could literally overnight upend that whole gray area.
Is this decoupling from China's behavior, or do you feel it's a realization of the US and the West's risk management policy?
The question for me is, why did it take so long? You have a completely different economic model, which is a state capitalist model in China. It's an authoritarian model um, that that benefited from 3+ decades of massive investment and technology transfer from the West. Um, it was easier to look the other way, for Western companies and Western governments when China's economic heft was much smaller and when its geopolitical footprint was much less. But as China increasingly became wealthier, as it increasingly became an integral part of the global supply chains and the manufacturing base, and the Communist Party parlayed that into realpolitik, then all of these systemic differences became very apparent. And, a lot of the nationalistic vibe and the nationalistic tendencies that were prevalent and have been prevalent in China for a long time throughout this period of growth, suddenly people were paying attention to that. So, as I've said, the relationship with China going forward is evolving and it's going through a major correction. And again, as I said, the strategic decoupling will continue. There's no question about it, and it's quite a risky place to be doing business. Now, in the semiconductor industry, that rationale got flipped on its head in October of last year when the latest rounds of U.S. export controls targeted much older legacy technologies that nobody thought anybody was going to, mess around with. As we sort of move along that continuum of export controls and sanctions on people, on software, on technology, um, that's going to further complicate the China paradox.
Do you feel more of those bans from the US are to come in 2023?
It appears at this point that they're serious about it. Although there's been a lack of clarity, and obviously there's been pushback from U.S. companies and of course others. But at the same time, you see that the US has apparently, for now, convinced the Dutch government to continue to deny export licenses to ASML, to send even older legacy, manufacturing equipment for even older legacy technologies. That obviously is not a very nice thing for ASML. Um, we've seen the Japanese government also acquiesce to Washington's demands and agree that they are also going to limit or cut off, specific technology to Chinese chip manufacturers and to the Chinese chip sector.